I am Dr. Pavitra Bharadwaj and I work as Associate Professor in the Department of Computer Science in Jesus and Mary College, University of Delhi. So friends, hoping that you are having a great learning experience on CEC and you are following all lectures which are being delivered for your learning and experience. So in this particular series, we are talking about web programming. And in the last lecture we had created an introduction. We are trying to create a base for web programming, and this course is relevant for basic level learners also and those who want to do advanced level web programming also. So these lectures basically are foundation level lectures at the moment, and then we will be progressing to advanced level web programming concepts. So if we look at a quick recap as in what we have done in the previous lecture. So we had discussed about the concept of internet, that is what exactly is internet. So it is a network of networks which connects millions and billions of devices across the world, and the basic purpose of internet is exchange of data, exchange of bytes, right. So communication on the internet basically is governed by some protocols, some rules, and primarily the rules which we look at are HTTP and FTP rules, right. Then how devices are actually addressed, how devices are identified on the network, that we discuss under the addressing schemes. That is how you can uniquely identify a device which is connected to the internet. Then we talk about domains and subdomains which are actually used for identifying devices on the network, and we then talk about the web development technologies, that is what are the different technologies which are used at the front end, what are the technologies which are used at the back end or the servers end. So besides, we had also discussed about the basic architecture, that is it is a client server based architecture, and HTTP request is sent and HTTP response is received. So taking forward from the discussion, we are going to now talk about the basic criteria or the basic fundamentals of the internet, that is the client and the server. So we must understand that when we are when we are saying, when we are using the term server, so we actually mean a device or a computer which is more powerful in the sense of its processing capability, or it could be in the sense of its data storage capacity, or it could be in the sense of some peripheral devices which are attached to it. So it is more powerful because it has the capacity to process the request which it is receiving from any other machine, which is known as the client machine. So client machine is nothing but a machine which is actually dependent on another machine to get a process done, or to get a file saved, or to get a particular task completed. Say for example, if you are talking about the general purpose server, so it could be a print server, it could be a file server. So when we are talking about the internet, so what we are talking about is, we are talking about a web server and we are talking about a web client, right. So processing actually is performed at both the ends, server's end also and the client's end also, right. So at client's end, what kind of processing is happening is different from what is happening at the server's end. Client side processing may be basically, it is preliminary data processing or data validation or data verification kind of functions, whereas at the server's end it could be storage of data, it could be retrieval of data, or it could be processing of data, it could be processing of any kind of interaction or user driven interfaces which are gathering data. They are all processed at the server's end. So data storage and processing is happening at the server's end, and basically the user interface and preliminary data validation etc. is being done at the client's end. So basically there are multiple technologies, various in case of hardware also, in case of software also, which are used, right. But when you talk about clients and the technologies which have more emphasis on the design aspect, right. So, where you are more concerned about the look and feel of the page, the visual appeal of the page, right. So, that part will come under the client side processing. So, these processes or these programs which are being created for the internet applications, these are basically, they have to meet certain criteria, or they are more sort of they have to be designed in a particular manner so that they can work seamlessly, they can run seamlessly on the internet, and they can provide the desired results to the user. So, first and foremost that we look at in web based programming applications is that these programming applications have to be lightweight. Lightweight in the sense that they occupy very less space and they take very less processors resources when they are running. So, because why we are saying this, because we know that now all kinds of devices are connected to the internet. So, portable devices, even handheld devices like mobile phones, they are constantly using these applications. So, if these are bulky applications which require too much of storage and processing power of the computer or the device, then these applications may not be suitable. So, firstly the applications have to be very lightweight so that they can be easily downloaded, installed, and be used on the go on portable devices, on mobile devices, right. Then they also need to be very secure, because all exchange on with the application is happening through the network. So, security aspect is also a very important attribute that one has to look at when you are designing applications for the web. Okay. And data management is another very important application, because you are constantly sending and receiving data through the internet. So, if there is too much of data exchange which is happening and this network speed is not up to the point, then that can also result in paralysis of your application. So, data management, that is how you can store the data and how you can communicate the data, how you can send and receive the data in the most compact form so that it does not impair the overall efficiency of the application, is also very important. Then another very important attribute of web programming, or rather I would say web programmers, is that they have to be very quick, because we know that the shelf life of technology these days is becoming shorter and shorter. So, whatever application is being developed today, it might be obsolete maybe a month in time, or maybe say 2 months in time. So, therefore, the development process has to be really fast, so that the need of the user can be fulfilled as soon as it arises. So, the user cannot wait for a long period of time for the application to respond. So, therefore, the programmers also have to be very quick and diligent in the delivery of application and deployment of the services which the user is asking. So, therefore, we look at client and server side programming separately, and in the lectures also we will be talking about the client side aspect of web programming, and then we will be shifting to the server side aspect of web programming. So, a multitude of technologies, as I already discussed, are used. Different technologies will be used at the client's end, right. For example, HTML or JavaScript may be used, or CSS cascading style sheets may be used at the client's end. So, these technologies will be used basically for designing and some kind of preliminary or minimalistic data validation requirements of the user. And then server side technologies could be myriad of technologies can be available, can be used there. These are like the PHP or the ASP, JSP, Cold Fusion, multiple types of technologies, platforms are available these days which can be used. And there are some technologies like the XML which can be used both at the client as well as the server side program. So, when you talk about the web, basically we talk about two types of, or rather we will say in today's day and age we talk about three types of web applications, or we talk about three types of web. So, the first web is the static web. Static, the word itself says that these are only going to be using the client side technologies. So, therefore, there is no interaction and no change which will take place on the content of the of the page. So when the end user is trying to interact with the web page, they cannot make any changes. The contents of the web page will remain as it is, as they were developed. It is only the developer who can make any change to the content of the web. End user can only navigate through the pages. So basically this is a fixed kind of design, a layout, and it cannot, the client has got no control over the static web. Okay, so it's simply a collection of HTML pages which are linked to each other. Whereas if we talk about the dynamic web, so in dynamic web we are using some kind of server side programming also, and therefore with the interaction of the client, the page can be changed. The client has some control, the end user has some control to change the contents of the page. So here you have higher level interaction with the end user. So here we also use some kind of static technologies like HTML, but besides HTML we will also use some other technologies, say you will use some scripting, or you will use some other kind of server side technologies in order to provide some kind of dynamism to your page, so that whenever the user is interacting, the user has got some control and the user is able to make some changes with the web page. Like for example, I can give a very simple example. Some of the websites, they will allow the user to change the interface, or they will allow the user to change the font size according to the requirement. Though in order to make the web page more accessible, the user is allowed to choose a bigger font, or is allowed to use a screen reader. All these are example of using dynamic web pages where the user can interact, can control the look and feel of the page. So here of course you will also need some kind of other technologies, like database technologies will also be a part of this. You need database servers, you may need file servers, you may also need streaming servers at some point. Then the third type of web, which is more common because of the recent developments in the data sciences and AI and machine language, are known as the semantic web. So semantic web basically is an intelligent web because it is using artificial intelligence techniques for manipulation. So here we are going to use data mining, web mining, text mining, information management, sentiment analysis. All these things are a part of the semantic web. So here the changes are not even driven by the user, they are automated changes. So when a particular user will log in, the type of content which will be shown to the user will be based on some kind of data mining or some kind of artificial intelligence which has been incorporated, which is a part of the web page. So data here is directly or indirectly processed by the machine. So this is actually the next generation web which is already in place and it is being used, it's become very popular. Like we know, we have personalized content which is shown to us by so many portals, or we have, targeted marketing which is done by the online shopping portals. So what are these? These are all examples of semantic web and how AI is being integrated into changing and controlling the look and feel of the web pages. So these are the three main types of websites which a person will come across as an end user, and when we are looking at it from the developer's point of view also, we need to understand how the three different types of web pages can be designed. So before we actually start the process of designing of the web page, first we should also consider to learn about the major features of the World Wide Web, or the major features of the internet rather. So when we talk about the internet, there is another term which is often used interchangeably with the internet, that is known as the World Wide Web. Okay, so World Wide Web actually is not a synonym of the internet as sometimes is commonly perceived by naive people, but it is a service or it is a part of the internet which supports hypertext documents and allow users to view and navigate the different types of data. So actually we have a web page which is a document, just like we have a Word document on our system. If you want a document to be uploaded on the internet, you need to create a HTML document, right? This is, we are talking about purely about static web. So a web page is a document which is created in the hypertext markup language, or what we also call as the HTML tags, right? Now HTML designers, they will link these pages to each other. The word hypertext actually means the text which is going to lead you to another document or to another page, which is also commonly known as the link. So here in HTML, you call the link as a hyperlink, and every web page has got a unique address which is known as the URL. So you can identify each and every web page using its URL, and you can connect it to other pages on the web using the same URL. Now besides World Wide Web, there are other features also of the internet, or we say which are other services which are also used and provided by the internet. Another very important service which is provided is the email. So email is most popular. There are, I mean, needless to talk about that, you know, why email has figured out as one of the topmost ways of, you know, people's communication with each other. So we can easily create, send and receive messages, and you actually need to only have an account on the internet mail server with a domain name. So we all know that how email accounts can be created and how they function. So basically it is a mail server which is being used, and for every account there is a user ID, or what we also known as popularly the username, which is used, right? So email, you know, is one of the service which is provided, and in most cases email is a part of other websites or other, you know, service providers, other mail servers which you access through the World Wide Web. So how do you actually locate a particular page, or how do you actually locate a resource which is available on the World Wide Web? So for that we have a particular way of referencing all the resources which are available on the World Wide Web, and this way or this method or this unique address which is associated with every resource on the net or on the World Wide Web is known as the URL. So URL is basically, it stands for Uniform Resource Locator, and URL is used to give a unique address to every resource on the World Wide Web, right? So it's a unique address, unique identification with which you can find out every page. Just like, you know, everybody, every person has got a particular address. So you can uniquely identify people using their address. So on the World Wide Web also, every resource must have a unique address, and that address is actually known as the URL or the Uniform Resource Locator. Now this Uniform Resource Locator or the URL, it has got several parts. Just like one person's address also has several parts, like you have the house number, you have the street number, you have the street name, you know, locality, city, state, country and so on and so forth. Likewise, URL will also has different types, different components, or it has got different parts using which, you know, the address of a particular resource can be stated completely. So the first part of the URL is known as the protocol. So as we all know, whenever we type the address of any web page, we first type HTTP or, you know, HTTPS, or likewise we can type other things. So this is the protocol, and this will specify the method of communication that is going to be used. So of course the most common is HTTP and HTTPS, which is the secure form of HTTP, but you can see other protocols also. So this basically is going to define the way in which communication is going to happen. As we already discussed, in case of HTTP, the mode of communication is going to be a request and response mode of communication. Then after the protocol, we have the domain name. So domain name is basically the identifier, the textual identifier of a particular computer. Okay, we will talk about what else can come instead of domain name also, but generally most commonly it is the domain name which is specified. And in domain name also there are top level domain names, there are middle level domain names, so that also needs to be looked at. Then we have the port number. Now port number, as we can see here, it is 8080. Now this port number is actually the service which is going to use or which is going to be run. Now if it is an HTTP service, it will use the port number 80. Port is actually the virtual connection on which the service is going to connect, or on which the server is going to connect to the client, or the client is going to connect to the service. So it is that point at which the connection is going to take place. Then we have the directory and the resource path. So after the port number comes the complete address of the resource on the host machine, where exactly the on the computer the particular file or the particular HTML page has been stored. So when you talk about in terms of networks, generally computer is referred to as the host. So when we are saying host name, we actually mean that we are trying to refer to the computer. So these domain names, as we were talking, they are broken down into multiple levels. Say for example, the domain name is www.someaddress.com. So here the top level domain name is com, and the second level domain name is some address, and the third level domain name is www. So top level means that we are specifying what type of domain name it is, whether it is a commercial organization, it's a business organization, it's a government organization, what type of organization it is. Okay, then we can have multiple levels also. Okay, but there are a few rules which need to be understood before domain names can be specified, and how domain names are chosen also, who assigns the domain names to the website. So this is actually one full area of discussion of how domain names can be chosen, who assigns domain names to the website, and what are the rules. But some preliminary information is very important before we actually start using the web programming application development exercises. First is that the domain names are case sensitive, okay, and every domain name has to be having a price. So top level domain names could be .com or .ac or .org. As I already said, it defines the nature of the organization which owns the domain name. Okay, and lowest level domain name always has to be www. If it is an intranet, that is it's a personal internet, the lowest level domain name can change also. But because you are using HTTP, then the lowest level domain name has to be www. Okay, and when a particular website or when a particular organization or a particular institution chooses to have a domain name, they need to register it with the agency. Like in India's case, the agency is the NIC. So you need to register the domain name and you have to pay a price for using that particular domain name. But domain names, actually when we talk about the internal aspect, or when we talk about the internet protocol and how machines are using or how machines are internally addressing each other, then we need to have a mapping between the name and the address. So host machines, they actually have an IP address, that is the internet protocol address, and they identify each other using that address only and not the name. Name is used because it is easier for human beings to identify names than to identify numbers. For us, it is easier to identify or to remember names, text, than to remember numbers. So all IP addresses are defined, and IP addresses have a particular form. So they are actually defined in tetrads, that is you have groups of 4 numbers. So you have from 0 to 255, you can have any set of number. So a series of domain name servers will keep a list and that list is actually having a mapping of the domain name to the IP address. So, these servers are commonly known as the DNS servers, which have a mapping of the domain name to the IP address. So, we will be continuing with our discussion on domain names in the following lecture. Till then, please keep watching CEC. Thank you.